At E3 2016, a new Spider-Man game was revealed to the public, and when I saw it, holy crap, I was excited. I mean, look at the graphics, the new suit, Spider-Man running through a coffee shop, and it was being developed by Insomniac Games, the same people who made the Spyro and Ratchet and Clank games? Yeah, this game was in good hands. In the following year, we got to see some gameplay. Yeah, sure, the quick time events made me worry a little bit, but I thought the combat was pretty good, and the swinging looked smooth as it ever has. And then at E3 2018, I was impressed even more. I thought the villains looked great. And then that one part where Spider-Man's getting jumped and he looks up and says,
"Wait, you?"
For some reason, that one part stuck with me. Could it be a new villain that Insomniac thought up? So I went out and bought the game first day and played it. And well, here are my thoughts on the game. Just to be clear, I'll be talking about the base game and will not be covering the DLC. And I will be spoiling the story. So if you want to come back after playing the game, I completely understand. Alright, true believers, this is Marvel's Spider-Man for the PS4. We open to Peter Parker, who has been Spider-Man for 8 years at this point, being woken up by the police radio from his cell phone. Today is the day that the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, will finally be brought in for all the crimes he has committed over the years. Peter suits up and heads out to help bring him in. After a long battle, Fisk finally gets taken down and arrested. But before he goes, he warns Spider-Man,
Good luck, Willie. I have a feeling you're gonna need it.
Idiot! I'm the one who kept order in this city! 1 month! In 1 month you'll wish you had me back!
But let's not worry about that right now. Peter must get to his other job to meet Otto Octavius. Yep, Otto is Peter's boss and it looks like he's a good person. Alright, that's cool. In this game, Peter and Otto are working together to create robotic prosthetic limbs that can be controlled by the mind. And no, not these.
Put your arms up! All of them!
Sadly, they don't have it figured out just yet. Later on that day, Peter brings in his suit to repair it because the fight with Fisk was pretty rough. But oh no, Otto's right behind him. How will Peter get out of this situation?
Of course. It's you. I don't know what you're...
Come on, Parker, it's obvious.
Let me explain.
I only wish you'd told me sooner. Huh. Yes. I guess if you design his equipment, you're bound to be a target too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't worry. Your secret's safe.
With help from Otto, Peter creates the white spider suit and man, look at him go! After that, Peter meets up with Aunt May, who is honestly too good for this world, and Martin Lee, who runs the homeless shelter Feast. If you've seen anything from E3, you know what he becomes, but one thing at a time. Later that night, Spider-Man discovers that the alarm at the auction house that is holding Fisk's estate sale was tripped. He heads in to investigate. When he gets there, he sees men in masks, later dubbed demons, holding up the place, looking for a file. Spidey gets in deeper, and comes across Mary Jane Watson, or MJ. She works for the Daily Bugle in this game. And I'm guessing that she is here to question this lady, seeing that her and Fisk were close. She got here before Spider-Man, and came across a statue that she has seen before, and upon further inspection, she finds a folder containing info about Devil's Breath, and the name Norman Osborn. Spider-Man does his best to take out the demons, but they end up getting away with the file anyway. Oh yeah, MJ and Peter are not dating in this game, and this is why.
You know, this is exactly why we broke up.
I thought we broke up so you could focus on your career.
We broke up because you wouldn't stop treating me like a baby. Don't do this, MJ. Don't do that, MJ. Oh, that's too dangerous, MJ. I may not have super spider powers, but I'm not made out of glass.
I mean, I can see where she's coming from, but come on now. If you're dating a superhero, of course they want you to stay out of trouble. And trust me, she puts herself in danger a lot in this game. Anyways, Shocker pops up and Spidey takes him out, but he realized something is wrong with Shocker.
I mean, we all know you're kind of dumb, but I didn't think you were this dumb. You must be desperate, which means you're not just stealing for yourself. You must be working with someone, or for someone.
The next day at work, we meet Norman Osborn. And guys, I'm just gonna tell you right now, Norman is a complete douchebag in this game. Even though Otto and Peter were making some kind of progress in the project they were working on, Norman shuts down the lab's funding, leaving them both jobless. Well, what can you do? Later on, Spider-Man finds out that Sharker has broken out of jail and is now robbing a bank. Spider-Man fights him again, and here's where we learn who he's working for.
It's not like you to be afraid of people.
Not even sure these guys are people. Could be anything under those masks.
Wait, did you say masks?
Spidey takes him out again, and then heads to a weapons warehouse owned by Fisk that the demons are robbing, and then teams up with Jeff Davis. He's a pretty cool cop. He helps out in the fight, and even saves Spider-Man's life. And because of what happened at the warehouse, he gets a reward for his heroic deeds. But the ceremony is attacked by bombers, being controlled by Martin Lee, or in this case, Mr. Negative, who has the power to mind control people. Jeff sadly dies during the attack, and this is Miles Morales, his son. Yep, there he is. I also want to add that Fisk was right. If he was not in jail, he could have stopped the demons from stealing the bombs he had at the warehouse, along with those two big gangsters that are now causing trouble in New York. A few weeks pass by, and now Spider-Man has to figure out how to prove that Lee is behind everything and stop him. Also, because of the bombing attack, Norman hires Silver Sable and her crew to protect New York. They do have their ways. Spidey proves that Lee is behind the attack along with a few other things. He finds out that Lee is building an armor truck. He hates Norman Osborn. I mean, who doesn't?
This is all your fault, Norman, you son of a...
And he is attacking people who are connected to Norman in search for Devil's Breath. After breaking into Norman's office, Spider-Man learns that Devil's Breath was designed to cure any genetic disease, but the way it is now, it's a bioweapon. Thankfully, there is only one sample out there right now, and it's in the hands of the guy who led the project, Dr. Michaels. So Spider-Man have to find Michaels before Lee does. Of course we find him, along with that armored truck I told you about earlier, but Lee ends up getting away with Devil's Breath, and then attacks Grand Central to draw out Norman. But with the combined efforts of MJ and Spider-Man, Lee's plans are ruined, and the day is saved. Well, only for a few hours, because later that night, someone steals Devil's Breath. And to top that off, there's also a prison breakout at Rikers and the Raft. Spider-Man tries his best to contain both prisons, but sadly it was too much for him. We see him get jumped, and then we see the true mastermind behind the breakout. Yep, it was Otto, who is now Dr. Octopus. Now let's back up a bit. Over the course of the game, Peter and Otto continue to work on the project that I mentioned earlier. While Peter was out doing his own thing, Otto was getting closer and closer to his goal. Peter pops up every now and then to help out. When Otto comes across a problem, Peter comes in and cleans it up. We also learn that Otto is losing the use of his arms because of his overexposure to toxins in his youth. So this project was to help him and others who needed new arms. But as soon as he slapped that mind chip thingy on, he starts to change. Peter warns Otto if he continues to work on this, he will end up losing himself and become a different person. And of course, Peter's warning falls on deaf ears because by Otto just seeing and hearing Norman's name, triggers him. And trust me, we learn why later on. So let's fast forward to where we are now. Doc Ock warns Spider-Man to stay out of this and throws him off a building, and then go to Times Square to release Devil's Breath upon New York, starting an epidemic. So Devil's Breath is out affecting people including Aunt May, the Sable crew is after Spider-Man under orders from Norman, prisoners are raiding the city, and we have supervillains making all kinds of trouble. Looks like Spidey got his hands full, but it's nothing he cannot handle. He takes care of Electro, Vulture, Rhino, and Scorpion rather quickly, and defends New York from the prisoners and the Sable agents. And now it's time to find the cure for Devil's Breath and take down Lee and Doc Ock. With help from MJ, we discover 3 things. That Norman is heading to the lab where the cure for Devil's Breath is, the location of the cure, and how Lee got his powers. Years ago, during an experiment being conducted by Norman and Otto, Lee as a child was being used to test out Devil's Breath. Things start to go wrong, making Otto want to stop the whole thing, but Norman decided to continue the experiment, and then this happened. So now we know why Lee hates Norman. He created Mr. Negative and, in a way, killed Lee's parents. But why does Otto hate Norman? Norman and Otto were close back when they were younger. They even started Oscorp together. In case you don't know, that is the company that Norman owns. But because of Norman's experiment that gave Lee his powers, and a few other things, the two friends grew apart and Norman basically took half of Oscorp from Otto, leaving him in the situation he is in now. And now Otto just wants to show the world what kind of person Norman is, and of course kill him. After saving MJ from jumping off Norman's balcony, Spider-Man gets to the lab where the cure is. Lee is already there holding Norman hostage. Spidey leaps in and takes Lee out, along with getting the cure. But sadly, victory is short, because after the fight, Dr. Octopus shows up and takes out Spider-Man and kidnaps Norman along with the cure. Spider-Man can barely stand, but knowing that Aunt May and the city is in danger without that cure, he pushes through. He gets a new suit, saves Norman, and after an emotional fight, takes down Doc Ock and gets the cure back. But sadly, Aunt May's condition got worse, and Spider-Man has to choose between saving his aunt or the city. Aunt May tells Peter to take off his mask because she knew that he was Spider-Man. Aunt May tells Peter that she is proud of him for all that he has done, and Peter makes his choice. In the next scene, we see the people of New York get the cure for Devil's Breath, Aunt May's funeral, Otto gets locked up, and MJ and Peter gets back together. And that's it for the story. Now, before I move on to give my thoughts on the story as a whole, let me go ahead and tie up one loose end, Miles. Now, if you're familiar with Spider-Man lore, you know who he is. He is a Spider-Man from the Ultimate Universe who replaces Peter Parker after he dies. At least, I think that's how it is now. I'm not sure. I think Marvel made it where he came from the main universe. Anyways, in this game, I feel that he doesn't really add anything to the story. We all know that he is going to be bitten by a radioactive spider, and honestly, that was the only thing I was waiting to see. But he does grow as a character. We see him cope with his father's death by working at Feast, and trying to make a difference by helping people around him. And seeing him geek out from meeting and punching Spider-Man is probably one of my favorite things from the story.
Only this time, just let me have it. Right on the jock, okay? I can.
Oh, just punch Spider-Man.
Yeah, kid, and you broke your hand. There is also another moment, but I don't want to spoil that here. Okay, so what did I think of the story? Well, I think it was a good ride from beginning to end. The voice acting was great, and so were the characters. Firstly, let me talk about Peter Parker, our hero. I love the fact that he is still so relatable. As a 20-something, I know what he's going through. I mean, minus the spider powers. Granted, I've never been kicked out of a house or anything like that, but I know how it feels to lose something when you just cannot afford it. I know most people who watch this video has been there, done that as well, and that's why I love Peter as a character. We can see ourselves in him. I like how MJ likes to get things done. Miles was being very helpful rather than just sitting around feeling sorry for himself. And Aunt May is just being sweet as always. I really wish she did not have to die. And lastly, let's talk about the villains. I was honestly bummed out at how easily they were taken care of. I know it's the Lee and Otto show from beginning to end, but I wanted to see more than just one boss fight. Maybe a few missions before we take them down for the count? You know, just something. I also wanted to learn more about Martin Lee. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm happy with what we got here, but I just wanted a little bit more. Seeing that letter he left for May when he goes full Mr. Negative, and seeing how he clearly cares about Feast, means a lot to me. But I wish we could see more of him other than Mr. Negative. Norman, the man who caused all this to happen. I will say that the game does a good job in making you hate Norman. I mean, he makes people lose their jobs, gets people killed, and after all of that, he is still so smug about it. But my friends, there is a reason why Normie here is the way he is, but I don't want to spoil that here. And last but not least, Otto Octavius. Man, seeing him go from wanting to help the world and then diving straight into revenge was honestly sad. I didn't want to see him go down this path, not only because of Peter, but because I felt the man was better than that. The game does a good job showing him slowly go down that path. And when I saw those arms come up from behind him, it honestly broke my heart. Alright, those are my thoughts on the story. Let's get into gameplay. Okay, now that we are done with the story, let's finally talk about the one thing I found the most interesting about this game when it comes to the gameplay: the combat. I know a lot of people compare it to the Arkham games, and yes, the combat is similar to the fighting in the Arkham games, but things are not one-to-one. And by that, I mean how you counter. In the Arkham games, it's simple. Just press triangle when you're about to be punched, and then watch Batman do his thing. In this game, you don't really have that. What you have first off is just the ability to just dodge out the way. And then later on, you will have the ability to shoot webs in someone's face while you dodge. And trust me, after you take down Fisk, go ahead and unlock that ability, because you will need it. Enemies here are super aggressive, and it does not take much to kill Spider-Man. Also, for that counter to work, you actually have to press the button at the right time. It takes a bit to get used to it, but once you do, the combat in this game is satisfying. I enjoy using the environment to take out a few goons, and then dodging a rocket slowly, and then web zipping right after to punch somebody's lights out. And just like Arkham, you can spin your combo meter to do a devastating attack, instantly knocking someone out. Or, if you're in need of healing, you can spend it to get some health back in those tight spots. Before some fights, there are stealth sections, nothing too deep, just stay out of sight and use your webs and other gadgets to take out some goons. These are just here, so you can whittle down their numbers to make the inevitable fight easier. And honestly, what annoys me the most is that I try so hard to stay out of sight, and I still end up having to fight someone. You have a lot of gadgets you can experiment with during fights and when you're sneaking around. You have your standard webs, impact webbing that instantly web up someone, spider drones that can give you another friend during a fight, web bombs which webs up multiple people at once, electric webs that shocks the enemy, trip mines that can trap your enemy if they set it off, concussive blasts that can push people off buildings or against a wall, and suspended matrix that can, well, suspend your enemies up in the air for easy pickings. I feel that every gadget is helpful in any kind of situation. Come across a goon that cannot be webbed? Use a trip mine to take him out, or use a concussive blast to get past his defenses. My personal favorite gadget is the trip mine. The guy's all like, "Aha, got you, Spider-Man," and then I'm like, nope. But Spidey is not the only one who can sneak around and use gadgets. MJ has her own stealth sections as well, and while I think these parts are cool for the story, I do find them pretty boring, if that makes any sense. All you have to do is go down a linear path and cause some distractions by knocking over a toolbox or use a spider tracer to sneak around. These parts are a pace breaker for me. Again, it's cool seeing MJ do her own thing to help out, but I honestly rather have the game just be Spider-Man from beginning to end with no interruptions. Okay, let's get back to Spidey. If you're familiar with any open world Spider-Man game, or any open world game for that matter, you should know what to expect here. There are radio towers that Spidey will have to hack in to display the city map. This will also show side missions, enemy bases, crimes, research missions, landmarks, challenges, and collectibles. I won't talk too much about the side missions. All you need to know is that some of them are fun to complete, and some of them have great moments. There are enemy bases where you fight waves of goons, and since we are a superhero, there are crimes as well. And they come in different flavors. You may have to stop a speeding car, find someone who has been kidnapped, or put it into a hostage situation. The research missions are probably my favorite, seeing how each one is different in their own way. You may have to swing through a cloud of smog to find out what is polluting the air, or be a plumber. And I am not joking about that.
Now I ask, how many other heroes fight crime and fix your shower?
Landmarks, you go to the location, take a picture, easy peasy. Challenges where you complete the task as fast as you possibly can while performing well. And another favorite, you can collect backpacks from Peter's past. And every time you do, he always says something about it.
Hey, my first camera. I got this at a yard sale. Still uses film.
Now with all this stuff that you can do, what do you earn from it? Of course you get experience points, which help you upgrade stuff, and tokens. I am sure you was wondering why Spider-Man could not make up his mind on what he wanted to wear during the story segment. That's because you can spend the tokens to unlock different costumes that have their own powers. So, for example, you can play in the Stealth Big Time suit and still use the armored legs from the Iron Spider suit. And yes, they do stay on during cutscenes, just the way I like it. And if you don't feel like buying a new suit, you can spend your tokens on upgrading your gadgets instead. But in order to get those tokens so you can unlock those suits, you cannot just jog the streets of New York. You must take to the sky and swing, and out of every Spider-Man game I've played, it's the best here in my opinion. It does not take long to get used to it, and once you start to pick up speed and the music that plays when you're swinging really fast, web zipping to different points and wall running, makes you feel really amazing, kinda like Spider-Man.
You're Spider-Man. You're the amazing Spider-Man. You're the spectacular Spider-Man.
And a few other choice adjectives Jameson uses.
But really, if you want to walk the streets of New York, I don't blame you, because I don't think I've ever had the pleasure to be in a city that feels this alive in a video game. When it comes to a modern setting, everyone has something to say, good and bad. And another thing I thought was pretty cool was how the police and the firefighters can handle a situation without needing Spider-Man's help. Sure, they are not going to be around to help you fight a supervillain, but something small like this, it's good to see them actually help out. And no matter if you're on the streets or sitting on top of the Empire State Building, this game looks really pretty. The action moments during the story cutscenes and how everything else looks when you're out and about is just a joy to my eyes. And since I mentioned cutscenes, let's talk about the QTEs, or Quick Time Events. Seeing the QTEs reminded me a lot of Spider-Man 3, and well, we all know how that went.
Please! Someone! I'm going to die!
Thankfully here, I don't think they're as bad. And if you don't like QTEs because you're too slow, just cut them off and watch Spider-Man do all the work. There are other small things I want to mention before I wrap this up. There are a ton of Easter eggs for you to find. Most of the Easter eggs I've came across were references to the other Marvel heroes in the Marvel Universe, and of course that one song that everyone loves. And then there's JJ, the man who hates Spider-Man, has his own radio talk show, and it's glorious.
Oh, of course. Thank you for calling in, Mr. Mayor. My lines are open for you anytime. Jared, did you hear? Tough but fair! That's our new slogan. I don't care who else is using it. Don't care.
If you love hearing JJ yell at people and always finding some petty way just to hate on Spidey, you owe it to yourself to play this game. And here are some stuff I came across while recording this game. Here I'm just doing a mission and then Spidey said that I should leave. So I swing off, trying to look cool and all that stuff, and then the game tells me I failed the mission. And then after I come back from the loading screen, it said I beat the mission. Alright. In this scene, someone's off camera using a lawnmower.
I'm gone.
So-called superhero.
I had some cars pop out of existence, and here's my favorite one I came across. What the hell? Spider-Man was the first game I've ever completed 100% on the PS4. Until the game updated and now I have to do more stuff, but it just shows how much I really enjoyed the game. Because I don't complete games 100% often. If you don't have this game or just don't know what to get for this holiday season, you owe it to yourself to buy this game. Next time we visit Marvel Spider-Man, I will be covering all the DLC, which will probably be in January or February next year. But until then, I hope you all have a wonderful day or night, and thank you for watching.